on Tuesday night, new Plymouth manager Miron Muslić got his first point in his first game in charge of Argyle. They drew 1-1 at home to Oxford. He's managed to stop the Gary Rowett's juggernaut, Justin, in his first game in charge. That's all right, isn't it?
Give him manager of the month. That's it, isn't it? It's to be fair, it wasn't a poor performance. It was a step in the right direction, and it's probably a game you wouldn't have expected so many goals, but considering how good Gary Rowett's Oxford have been recently, I think getting a result against them is a pretty positive step in the right direction for Plymouth and Miron Muslić.
Yeah. Probably. I wonder if Miron Muslić is thinking he missed a trick by not taking charge of Plymouth a game earlier, because it would have been a great way to kick things off with that remarkable win at Brentford in the Cup at the weekend. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad result. It's quite hard to judge the result, really, because obviously Oxford have been in sublime form since Rowett came in, but also Oxford at home surely has to be seen as one of Plymouth's more winnable games this season. So I don't really know what to make of this result. I suppose it's not a bad one for his first game. I guess you just don't want to lose, do you? And they got that over the line. Not a bad result at all, Justin.
Yeah, no, I'd say I think it's a good result. I think, you look at Oxford on paper and you go, it's a winnable game, but, and this is a huge but, Oxford are in good form, really good form. Muslić is new to Plymouth. I think Plymouth are in a decent spell themselves. I know they've now drawn 3 games in a row, but they're putting the principles they've needed for a long time in place. They're harder to break down. They're harder to play against. They still need to start creating more chances, but I think that will come in time. It might be on paper, not the best results, but I still see it as a huge positive. And they had character to come back in the game as well. That's a huge thing. A huge thing. This Plymouth team lacked character under Wayne Rooney. We're starting to see a little bit under Miron Muslić, and obviously Kevin Nanskaville, who was caretaker manager as well.
Yeah, for the FA Cup game at the weekend. But yeah, let's talk about the Muslić appointment, Justin, because he was unveiled at Plymouth last Friday. He was a manager in the Austrian lower leagues before becoming assistant manager at Cercle Bruges in Belgium. He became manager there in 2022, guided them to their best league finish in 9 years that season, managed to improve on that further the season after. But he was sacked only last month after a stinking start to the current season. So it's not been a massive turnaround since his last job and this job. Now, we won't pretend to know much about him. Justin, one thing I can say, he's an excellent public speaker. Did you hear that speech on Plymouth's Twitter? Incredible stuff, that, wasn't it?
He's got a lot of charisma. Obviously, he needs to back it up with results and performances, but I think he said a lot of the right things first, hasn't he? Which is a huge thing.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, Justin, I would say it's probably an upgrade on what Wayne Rooney was saying to them. So we know he's a better motivator than Rooney. Put it that way.
Yeah, we won't drag Wayne Rooney through the mud too much, but I do think it does have resonance with the squad, doesn't it? If you're able to form a sentence, it does help.
You literally just said seconds ago you're not going to drag Rooney through the mud.
Yeah, it's hard not to, because of how just the chalk and cheese, even just the charisma coming out of Muslić. He doesn't have to play in career, Wayne Rooney does. But what he's got here is clear leadership qualities, and that's a huge thing. Even just a little moment where he brings Kevin Nanskaville in, the coach, just take over from his 4-minute speech, was just him. That was just a highlight of him bringing in the old team, showing that there's no division and we're all in it together. Just a little moment like that. I don't think people without the experience, like a Rooney, for example, would do that. Simple.
Yeah, well, it's all well and good being a brilliant public speaker and being a good motivator, but whether that means you're an actually good manager or not, only time will tell. I was looking back through Cercle Bruges in the time Muslić was there. They were a very direct side, put a lot of crosses into the box, scored a lot of goals from set pieces. They had the second best defensive record in Belgium in each of his first 2 seasons, which initially I thought, great, that's an excellent start because Plymouth badly need to tighten up at the back. This season, the defensive record has not been so great. 30 conceded in Muslić's 16 games in charge, which is the 3rd worst in the Belgian league. So I'm not sure how it went so badly so quickly, but it seems like by and large he was slightly overachieving with the budget he had and managed to keep doing well while losing some important players. So it's a very interesting appointment, and with their current predicament, he certainly has his hands full. And he's certainly got a massive task on his hands trying to keep Plymouth up. But to be fair, it seems like Plymouth are having a right good go of it because, as mentioned not long ago, they've spent a club record fee on the Ghanaian attacker Michael Beidou. They've also signed Timotas Puhac, a Polish left-back on loan from Holstein Kiel in Germany, who, I tell you what, he looked very good against Oxford on Tuesday. They might be losing Morgan Whittaker this window, but Plymouth are at least having a crack at it, and Muslić is the man who they've decided is going to give them the best chance of staying up, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a positive. I think them taking a risk on Muslić is needed. They could have gone with someone who, like Steven Schumacher, who's going to get results fairly quickly because he knows the club and he knows the division, but it's not always going to be a long-term success. And I think they probably see Muslić as someone who's going to fit the bill long-term. I mean, he's got a 3.5-year contract, I think. So it's one of them where they clearly are investing in him. And that's a hugely important thing. And they're doing that with the squad as well, and probably thinking a little bit left field because we all know recruiting in England is a very difficult thing with a team of Plymouth budget. They have to think purely on the European market, which is absolutely fine. You just got to make sure you get the balance right between players who know the division, know the efforts of a relegation battle. But they got players like Joe Edwards in there. I think it's going to be hugely beneficial. Ryan Hardy, players who have been through it all before. So yeah, it's just about striking that right balance. And I think they can do that. I think it's going to be helpful that Neil Dusnip, the sporting director, has left because I think the decision making since they've been in the Championship has been terrible, other than getting Ballymumba and Morgan Whittaker permanently. It's been a poor time of it. But yeah, I think I would see this as a new chapter in the club. Whether they stay up or not is another question. I think this is a positive turn for them, whatever happens this season.
Yeah, it's definitely been an encouraging couple of weeks, hasn't it? We can say that much with Plymouth Argyle, and it seems like they are going in a different direction, particularly because Dusnip isn't there anymore, just appointing Scousers all the time. Again, got nothing against Scousers being managers, but the trends that he was going down of seemingly just appointing people who he knew was not helping Plymouth out at all. We can say that much for sure. Let's go on to some more of the midweek action then, Justin. And Blackburn are up to 5th after a 3-0 win against Portsmouth on Wednesday night. John Eustace's boys scored all their goals in the space of 15 minutes, Justin, and are properly back to winning ways with a bang, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They took the goals really well as well. I thought Mike Targay was equally impressive, and it's a much needed one because obviously this is the game that was called off a few weeks ago. I can't remember when it was now, sort of October, November time, but it's one of those periods where it's a game that has to be plugged into the wherever it can fit, basically, and they've got to make use of it. And obviously we saw a couple of draws, and Blackburn there ran away with the game. And I think it's a case of Portsmouth in a better spell at the moment than probably when these two teams would have originally played. So for Blackburn to come away with such an emphatic win, I think is a huge win. It's not an easy game by any means, but it could have been a lot easier had this game been played when it originally played because of the form of both teams, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, huge win for Blackburn, and I think because the game was poised at 0-0 for such a long time, they were very clinical, showed a very clinical moment, and that's what you need.
Yeah, I particularly enjoyed Blackburn clearing the ball off their own line and 21 seconds later scoring up the other end. A very Championship goal, that one, Justin. You look like you've got something to say.
I thought that was really good refereeing, by the way, because I thought it should have potentially been a penalty on Callum Lang. The ref played advantage. Colby Bishop had the header, played on, it was cleared off the line. I thought that was really good refereeing. The referee could have given a penalty and Colby Bishop wouldn't have had that chance to score. Might be a semi-controversial moment, but my observation would be that's pretty good refereeing. Portsmouth fans will probably be annoyed that they didn't get a penalty, but I'm sure they wouldn't have minded should Colby Bishop had put his chance away.
That's absolutely fine, Justin. Yeah, it was a good win for Blackburn. I'm not sure the scoreline properly reflects the game. Portsmouth have been pretty shocking on the road recently, but I thought they actually played all right here and still ended up losing pretty badly. So It's really not happening for them, and they've now conceded 13 in 5 away games, scoring just once in that time, which isn't great at all, is it? So they definitely need some improvement in that on the road, although they are still quite good at Fratton Park this season. But Blackburn's excellent season continues, doesn't it, Justin? They've gone through a patch of 5 without a win. Did have draws with Leeds and Sunderland in there, so not results to be sniffed at all. And it looks like they're not giving up on a playoff place without a fight, are they, Justin? They're still hanging around there.
Yeah, and they've obviously been linked with a couple of strikers, which is in January already, which is a positive because it shows that the club are clearly going to be active this month, and that's something that they need. I know it's quite rich saying it after a 3-0 win, but I think what this game probably showed is they had a very clinical 15 minutes, didn't they? It wasn't a game where they sustained chances and therefore didn't consistently put them away. They are missing that convincing forward in that final third, despite McToggett having a pretty good game here. But yeah, you are right. They are well in there, and I do think they probably are going to be 2 places up for grabs. So yeah, I thought originally it might be 1, but you've got Watford, West Brom, Middlesbrough, Blackburn all within 2 points of each other between 5th and 8th. I think it's going to be a really big one. And I think again, if you're a better defensive team out of those group of sides, you're probably going to be in a pretty decent place. And I think Blackburn are one of the better defensive teams up there. The key thing is making sure recruitment here is spot on in this month, because that's going to be the difference between, I think, those teams. Middlesbrough obviously got a very good squad. Blackburn, they need bolstering.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say there. Just in January could very well be the thing that decides the playoff race, could decide quite a few other things as well. And got to be said, Blackburn have had a few peculiar results this season. They've taken points off Leeds, Burnley, Sunderland and Middlesbrough, but they've also lost at Plymouth and lost at home to Hull and Stoke. So I think you can't underestimate how big it is winning games like this, because this should be the groundwork of a playoff season for a team like Blackburn, shouldn't it? So this win against Pompey should be seen as a big positive. Even though many probably expected Blackburn to win, it shouldn't be underestimated that it's a big win, no matter whichever way you look at it. Just in 5 in 10, name 5 breeds of dog.
Border Collie, Labrador, Shih Tzu, shit.
You've already said that one.
Terrier, and Golden Retriever.
You actually ran out of time there.
My mind went completely blank.
And I'm not sure I can accept terrier anyway, because that's a very general way of just naming dogs.
I know you've got a terrier, so you think you're an expert, but pipe
a border
down.
Terrier.
No. Terrier.
You've got border terriers, you've got Yorkshire terriers. There's all sorts of terriers. Just
Huddersfield have nicknamed the terriers.
Yeah,
are you diminishing what they're nicknamed?
Yes, because you can't just say terriers. That's just not.
Yeah, Border Terriers is a terrible nickname for a football club, though. We're the Border Terriers.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but I can't accept terriers. So unfortunately, Justin's full of foul of 5 in 10 this week, ladies and gents. Let's round off the midweek action, though. And on Tuesday night, a late equaliser from Fakun Bayo saw Watford get a point away at Cardiff. 1-1 it finished there. And it's got to be said, Cardiff City will be wondering how on earth they didn't win this one, Justin.
Yeah, they had an incredible amount of chances, even before they took the lead. So many chances, quite a few from set pieces as well. I think it was one of those where Watford have come away with it thinking, Christ, yeah, we have got away with one there. And I know there have been quite a few Watford fans who have been a little bit worried about the amount of goals and chances they are conceding. But from a Cardiff perspective, yeah, I think this is a positive turn in performances. Again, they're on the upward trajectory, which is what they need to do, because a lot of teams behind them are making big decisions, changing managers, getting recruitment sorted. Cardiff, once again, in a position where we're probably just lagging behind a little bit, but again, performances in a good place at the moment.
You say that, Justin. They've turned around their form somewhat when it looked like Omar Ritza was nearing the sack not too long ago, but it is undeniable that they really will regret not getting all 3 points here, because they were leading until the 87th minute, the better side, and facing a Watford team who had lost 8 from 12 on the road prior to this. So it has to go down as a massive 2 points dropped. And they would have gone 3 points clear of the bottom 3 as well. And it was also a chance for them to get a bit of momentum heading into the South Wales derby this weekend. So plenty of reasons why that Watford equaliser was a shocker for Cardiff. But if we're looking at things on the bright side, 4 games unbeaten for Omar Ritza. And I think you've just got to say fair play to that because, as I say, they were in shocking form before and he's managed to turn it around somewhat, which is good news ahead of the aforementioned derby this weekend, Justin.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is they're looking a lot more compact and difficult to create against. It's a positive. I mean, a couple of draws sort of give you or 3 draws in a row give you that indication. Still need to find a better balance, but the steps are there and that's shown because I think maybe other than the Coventry drawing on New Year's Day, they have been much better at making sure teams don't have an abundance of success against them. That's going to have to be the case against Swansea because we know that Swansea, if you give them respect, if you give them time, if you give them room, they're going to pull you apart and they're going to create chances. Whether or not they take them is another story, but I think this is as you say, as you've already pointed out, the run of form, the solidity that they're gathering is a really good place for them to be at the moment. I do want to point out Keane Ashford as well. He needs to be spoken about. He's hit a really good patch of form. He's rightly getting the plaudits, and in his run and finish in this game was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, we will talk more about the South Wales derby in the previous show brought to you by SBK tomorrow. And it looks like Cardiff are trying to bring in some reinforcements in January. They're reportedly targeting Danish striker Yusuf Salech from Swedish side Sirius. It's said he'll cost around £3 million, so that'll be a serious signing if that one happens. As far as Watford are concerned, can't say this game does a great deal in changing my scepticism around them, staying in a similar position to where they are. I do think they are going to have a bit of a drop down the division in the coming weeks. They've had a fair few late goals this season, haven't they? And This is another one for them. Anyway, they're away at the mighty Rams this weekend, so that'll be an interesting game. That one. But yeah, Justin, we've covered all the midweek action. Let's take a quick break because we've got a lot of news to talk about elsewhere across the Championship, including Luton Town's new manager and an absolutely bonkers fan forum at Hillsborough. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. So, as I was alluding to, plenty for us to get our noses into here, Justin. And of course, we'll start off with Luton Town, who have named Matt Bloomfield as their new manager following the departure of Rob Edwards. The 40-year-old was officially appointed on Tuesday and has signed a 3.5-year contract. He, of course, joins from Wycombe, who sits second in League One. Bloomfield says it's the right move at the right time. Wycombe fans may disagree with that. He's come up a few times in the past few months now on this podcast, though, Justin, and he's now finally a Championship manager. So, with that being said, what do you think of this?
I do like the Bloomfield appointment. I think when we were speaking in terms of Coventry, I wasn't quite sure whether he'd be ready for a team who were going to push for promotion. Obviously, I think that was a long time ago now because Coventry weren't too far off the top 6. Aspirations were still there. But I think him coming into Luton, the objective there is to get them up the table as quick as possible because, like it or not, you're in a relegation fight here, Luton Town fans. You know, you're precariously sat above the bottom 3 at the moment. And you need this is a big moment, a huge moment. And I think the positive that I see is Bloomfield has acknowledged it. He's spoken of needing to work on defensive shape out of possession, which, it should see them harder to break down or at least uglier to play against. Because he's mentioned the principles that he wants to bring from Wycombe, running hard, grit, all of this that we know that Luton Town have been made of in previous years. He's spoken about all of that and he wants to instill that back into the team. They're huge positives. I do wonder about the immediacy of the task at hand. Mick Harford, the head of recruitment at Luton, and Matt Bloomfield have spoken about the need to just climb the table, get up the table, get as far away from the bottom 3 as possible. So there's clearly one eye on the relegation zone behind them. It took Matt Bloomfield some time to get going at Wycombe as well. But I think with Luton's structure, their squad, the quality that they've got, it's not quite a Wycombe situation. So, yeah, hopefully it sees them rise up the table. But I do think it is a positive appointment in the long term. We just need to see results over the next 6 to 8 weeks very quickly.
Yeah, one concern I have is Matt Bloomfield looks a bit like Graham Jones, who is infamously the worst appointment Luton have made in well over a decade. There's a bit of a similarity there, which...
Did you mean physical looks?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about that.
Google them. Look at them side by side. There's a bit of a similarity there, and that may bring a bit of PTSD for some Luton fans. But yeah, we obviously spoke a lot about Bloomfield, when he was being linked with the Coventry job, and I think he was also linked with the Millwall job as well, that obviously didn't happen for whatever reason. But what we repeatedly said was what he's done this season with Wycombe has been astonishing. And even up until the point that he's left, he's still been doing an astonishing job. Now, keeping pace with Birmingham and Wrexham, considering their budgets in League One, is incredible stuff, because he's had essentially no money compared to them. So that makes him a perfect fit for what Luton Town are about in that sense, even though they do have a bit more money nowadays with their brief tenure in the Premier League. And you're absolutely right, Justin, his style of play is also very similar to how Luton used to play. A lot of hard work, bit more direct, but getting in the faces of opposition teams as well. And he's developed a lot of players in his time at Wycombe. So he ticks every box for me, which is why I think this is an absolutely spot-on appointment. My only real concern is whether the issues at Luton run deeper than who the manager is, because a team as talented as theirs, playing as badly as they have been, makes me worry whether the issues at Luton are down to more than just whoever it is in the dugout. Do you see what I mean, Justin?
I think it's fine to highlight that, but I genuinely do think, and this is no slight on Rob Edwards, the club just needs a fresh pair of eyes on it, because I think when you've got a manager in the Premier League who's so used to losing, I think that mentality just ingrains itself within the players, the staff. I really do think it does. And there might be a lot that disagree with that, but I think unless you've got the experience to turn it around very quickly, like we've seen with Chris Wilder this season, there's no team that was more used to losing and conceding goals than Sheffield United last season and anywhere else in the country. He's turned the ship around at Bramwell Lane. Obviously Rob Edwards doesn't boast the experience that Chris Wilder has. So I think someone's going to come in with a fresh pair of eyes. I think that's what the players need. It's what the club needs. And you just sometimes, as I say, you can develop in such a way, you go away from your principles, and that's where I think Luton have gone. I think Matt Bloomfield is going to try and bring him back to the core basics that club has been built on. And that's what it needs. It needs that pair of eyes, needs a new voice. And I think that's as good a time as any to bring that in.
I think they definitely need a fresh set of eyes. I think that's pretty undeniable, really, because Rob Edwards just seemed to be stuck in the same old tactics that Luton were deploying in the Premier League and not adapting to coming back down to the Championship. But the difference between Wilder and Rob Edwards at Luton this season, well, one of the big differences is that Luton had a very similar squad to what they had in the Premier League. And I just wonder if the idea of losing every week has stuck with the players coming down into the Championship, and now they've got used to that in the Championship as well. So I don't know, that's one issue that Bloomfield may have to deal with, is just changing the mindset completely of the players, not just the tactics. So that's going to be really fascinating to see how he deals with that and whether he can deal with that, because he is still a fairly inexperienced manager, is Bloomfield. So he's got a lot on his plate, but turning it around is a lot easier said than done. I will point out, I was looking at Gary Sweets, the CEO at Luton, his statement with the Bloomfield appointment, and he said, "I'd just like to thank the immense amount of work and attention to detail our recruitment team have put into identifying the best candidates." I don't know if I'm just old school, Justin, but I didn't think recruitment teams were usually put in charge of identifying their next manager. I don't know if I'm completely wrong on that, but I thought that was interesting. And another interesting thing I saw was, it's not a Championship related stat, but it was very interesting. Wycombe's game this weekend will be the first since 2003 where Matt Bloomfield or Gareth Ainsworth haven't been involved, which is mind-blowing, isn't it? That's 22 years where one of them has been involved, and that's no longer the case anymore. Crazy.
Yeah, the definition of new era, isn't it? That is genuinely bonkers. I mean, credit, I know we give Gareth Ainsworth a fair bit of stick on this podcast, but credit to the relationship between, I think it just highlights a relationship between certain individuals and the clubs. Matt Bloomfield was there for a while, obviously, and Gareth Ainsworth was as well. I don't think you can not credit a club enough for just having that ethos. It's such a refreshing thing to have, I think. And I think credit to them both for sticking it out for so long.
Matt Bloomfield's first game in charge of Luton is this weekend at home to Preston. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how he gets on there, and we'll cast a curious gaze upon that game. Let's talk Sheffield Wednesday and the incredulous fan forum, which happened last night with the owner, Chansiri. Now, as most things do when he's involved, it went down like a shit in an elevator. Some of the highlights include him saying if fans aren't happy, they shouldn't come. He says they don't have any right to protest. When asked about plans for the future by a fan, he said, I don't know why you ask, because it doesn't affect you. When he was told to find a buyer for the club, Chansiri said it's not his job. And he also said he still doesn't know what he's doing wrong. Just a handful, just a mere selection of quotes which I've picked out there. But honestly, I could have picked so many and brought them to the table. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It really is crazy stuff. And I've never come across an owner like it. I think even in the Mel Morris days with Derby, he was very measured, good speaker. You know, you got people on board. I think that's the difference between a lot of owners and Chansiri, is that a lot of owners care about their own PR. Chansiri feels like he doesn't give two shits about his own PR. You know, it's one of those scenarios. But it is absolutely bonkers stuff. And again, I feel for Wednesday fans. I feel for the staff at Wednesday that they have to be under this, what must feel like pressure, under someone who's incredibly unpredictable. Because this fans forum mid-January is very bizarre timing. And I think the contents in which comes out of this fans forum, again, is very, very bizarre.
Yeah, well, apparently this was set up for Chansiri to try and understand the fans' concerns. But it doesn't seem like he was interested in that at all and just wanted to wind supporters up. He may as well have gone on the stage and just started flicking the V at people, because fans have come out of it even more concerned now. It sounds like it was a complete and utter shambles. And look, we have been saying all season, even when things have been going well, there's always the chance with Chansiri that he comes along and just messes everything up. It's just insane. But it's also quite apparent now that he and Danny Rule, their relationship is running thin. Chansiri has no filter, and he made that quite obvious last night, that their relationship is not in a great place at all. And look, Danny Rule is the best decision that's been made during the Chansiri era, but Chansiri may also be the reason why he ends up walking eventually. It's why we're sat here once again, Justin, saying the same thing with Nathan Chansiri and Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday cannot progress until Chansiri goes. But when's he going to go? Because who knows when we're getting so many mixed messages from him.
Look, if it's not his job to find a buyer for the club, then he's never going to go, is it? Because it is his job to find a buyer for the club. It's not.
But the thing is, he always says he will sell for the right price. But it sounds like his demands are pretty out there. So realistically, it doesn't look like we're ever going to get any progress in this situation, which is just a real shame.
Yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of ego behind it. And I get that, because a lot of very wealthy people, they have egos. But there becomes a point where you need to understand the real emotional aspect of owning a football club and what it means to the community. Chansiri's never understood that, because that's why they overcharge on tickets, and it's a very difficult footballing experience for a lot of people that go and travel to Sheffield Wednesday. Chansiri's never ever understood it, and it's unfortunately there needs to be a really serious scenario where Chansiri is prompted to sell, and I don't know what that's going to be. I mean, the relegation to League One, I thought might do it. It didn't. So yeah, it's. I don't know where Sheffield Wednesday go from here, because if they lose Danny Rule, it's very hard to see them ever being competitive under Dave Chansiri. Just never going to be the case. Danny Rule has made the club become a playoff contender, in the fact that we're talking about them when it comes to top six chasing. Chansiri's doing a really good job of trying to demean that quite significantly.
Yeah, for a change, Not the first time we've sat here saying that, is it? But yeah, it's strange with Wednesday because they just seem to fall upwards, don't they, under Chansiri? Because Darren Moore, how he got them promoted is incredible. And then Danny Rule doing this. It's just managers constantly fighting battles off the pitch as well as on the pitch. It's crazy. Do you want to know an incredible stat, by the way, Justin? This was put on Twitter. I can't remember who it was by. I apologise for not giving them credit. But Chansiri's been at Sheffield Wednesday for 10 years this month. In the time he's been there, they've only sold 7 players for money, only 2 of which were for over £500,000. In the same period, they've spent around £32 million on players. Completely and utterly mad figures, but it just perfectly sums up how poorly run Wednesday are.
How have they not fallen foul of FFP more? Do you know what I mean? It's only been the one case, but I mean, it's been a long time. Obviously, that's genuinely shocking. That is shocking. The lifeblood of lower league clubs, teams below the Premier League, the lifeblood of making them sustainable. He's selling players, and that is genuinely quite shocking. Yeah, that's a worry. That's a huge worry for me. That is.
Yeah. So it's worrying, just seeing how poorly run Wednesday are, and that's before you even get onto what comes out of the owner's mouth. But let's go on to transfer news and carrying on with the fan forum last night. An interesting moment where Chansiri walked out the room because he was taking some calls on his phone just after midnight, and then he came back in and revealed Shea Charles has been recalled from his loan by Southampton in a really, really strange turn of events, because it seemed like, according to all reports, he would be staying at Hillsborough. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything insinuating that Southampton were considering bringing him back, and then Chansiri just turned out of nowhere and announced it, which really sums up a dreadful night for Wednesday fans, because that is a massive blow, isn't it?
Do you reckon the loan manager's just been paying attention to this fans forum and gone, do you know what? This guy, let's get him, let's get Shea back. We can't have him there. Bring him back. Just literally phoned him up and said, we're activating his recall clause. Honestly, it is a kick in the teeth, because I think Shea Charles, like it or not, I think has been a linchpin to the success of Danny Rule this season. And he's got more out of Barry Bannon. His ball recoveries are so important to turning possession over and getting Wednesday on the front foot. I think him leaving is, I wouldn't say detrimental to Wednesday's season, because I think there's a lot more to him. It's going to disrespect Danny Rule if that's the case. But yeah, a huge blow.
Yeah, well, he's second in the division for the most tackles and interceptions this season, which is a pretty good indicator of just how brilliant he's been in Wednesday's midfield. You could make a fair argument he's been their player of the season, actually, because he's just been absolutely sublime for them since joining on loan. It is interesting that there have been reports that Southampton would be willing to loan him back to Wednesday. Whether they're just trying to make some more money out of it, I don't know. But the interesting thing is, if he were to play for Southampton before the end of January, that would mean that he can't go out on loan to anywhere else other than Sheffield Wednesday, because he's only allowed to play for 2 clubs in the season. So it's going to be interesting monitoring that for the next few weeks. I would like to think that Southampton would know that he's probably going to get more experience as a player playing in the Championship regularly and not getting battered every week in the Premier League. So,
God, yeah.
It's a strange turn of events, which I don't think anyone saw coming, but it's just got to feel sorry for Sheffield Wednesday fans. The past 24 hours have been absolutely awful, haven't they? But yeah, interested to see how that one turns out. Speaking of recalls, Tom Cannon has been recalled from his loan at Stoke by Leicester City. It's with reports linking him to Burnley, Sheffield United and Sunderland, apparently for over £10 million, Justin. We'll talk more about it from a Stoke perspective shortly, but it seems like he's at the middle of a right tug of war between those 3 teams, isn't he? Is he worth over £10 million, Justin? Because that does seem quite steep initially, doesn't it?
You tell me, because you took issue with Leicester paying, was it £7 million last summer? I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think you're the one that probably needs to lead this question. I like Tom Cannon a lot. The fact that he's accumulated £17 million worth of transfer fees before even making 100 career appearances, I think is astonishing. I love him. I think he's a good finisher, but is he worth £17 million, i.e. £7 million that Leicester paid for him and the £10 million he's going to go for here? I don't think he's worth that. But look, let's see what you've got to say on this one, because I think you've got a bit more of opinion than I have.
Well, I think you may actually be surprised here, Justin, because I think when Leicester signed him last summer, a year and a half ago, my angle was, first of all, Leicester have got two very good strikers in Iheanacho and Vardy, and Cannon is a young lad who's had only a handful of games under his belt. So that's why I thought 7 million at the time was quite steep. But I look at 10 million for him in this current market, and I think actually that's probably a fair price. I mean, Leicester, first of all, they know that they've got three promotion chasing sides who are all looking for strikers, quite clearly, and they are clearly battling it out in a bidding war to try and get this guy in at the club. So I think when you look at it like that, you can understand why he's going for so much. But I also think it shows a lot of how valuable a striker is in the current market, because you think about it, how many clubs in this window are looking for a striker? Probably 3/4 of them, because every club comes into the January window thinking we could really do with a striker, and they're really hard to find, aren't they? Strikers who score goals regularly, and Tom Cannon has been doing that in the lowest scorers in the division this season. That's why clubs are looking at him thinking, yeah, we're willing to pay 8 figures for this guy. And plus he's a young lad as well, so he's got potential, sell on value in the long term. So I think it makes sense that 10 million is the bounded about figure. I've even seen 13 million being talked about, because strikers like him are hard to find. He's a young guy, and that's why, the figure has been inflated so much. So people saying that it seems like a lot of money for him, that's the cost of finding a good striker nowadays, unfortunately, even at championship level.
When you put it like that, you are spot on, because you've got to consider it's January. Finding it, he's 22, so there's room for him to grow. He's got 9 goals this season, and 4 against Portsmouth, for example. So, a bit of a stat padding statistic there. But I do like Tom Cannon. I think he's a clinical forward. I think if you do put him in a team that are going to create chances, that are going to get him touches inside the opposition box and getting him facing one-on-one situations, he's going to score a lot of goals. I would much prefer him to go to Sunderland, because I think if he goes to Burnley, I think he'll play 7 or 8 games between now and the end of the season, and that's it. Similarly, probably with Sheffield United as well. Maybe a bit too harsh, but I think
I'm not sure I agree with that, Justin. I'm not sure I agree with that at all, because Sunderland have got Wilson Isidore, haven't they? So I'm interested to see how Sunderland are thinking that's going to work if it does happen. I mean, the thing I've seen Sunderland say is, or the reports say, is that Sunderland want him on loan and then with an obligation to buy if they get promoted, which is what they've also done with Enzo Lafay. So it seems like they're just kind of saying, yeah, we'll pay you all, lads, if we get promoted. So that's interesting. But I mean, Burnley and Sheffield United are 2 clubs both looking for strikers. I mean, Sheffield United, I think, would be his best destination for me personally, because I think he would also fit the Wilder style of play. So I don't agree with that at all. Just I think Sunderland will probably be his poorest option out of the 3 there, because I just don't know how that's going to work with Isidore.
I know, but you can say that about Keith Moore and Tyrese Campbell, who are...
Tyrese Campbell's been out injured and Keith Moore's not been informed this season.
Yeah, but Keith Moore has been informed in recent weeks. And Tyrese Campbell, once he gets back from injury, offers an option there. Burnley, I don't think Scott Parker has a lot of trust in his forwards. He's played Jay Rodriguez a fair few more games. He's just re-signed Ashley Barnes as well. There's a stacked striking department at Burnley as well. So, yeah, I think Sunderland is his best option, because I think if they bring him in, I think he's a better finisher than Wilson Isidore, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think he's a better option there. So I think Sunderland's is better destination out of those 3.
I'm not sure.
It's a game of opinions. It's a game of opinion.
It is a game of opinions, Justin, and it's going to be very, very fascinating to see where he does go. But from a Stoke perspective, it's obviously a big blow, losing their top goal scorer, especially when he scored more than a third of their goals this season. But they have recalled 19-year-old Nathan Lowe from his loan at Walsall. He scored 15 goals and got 5 assists in 22 appearances in League Two. So an exciting talent, Justin. But it's a big step up to the Championship, isn't it? It's going to be very interesting to see how he gets on, because it looks like he may be featuring regularly from now on.
Yeah, but again, I think Mark Robbins is the perfect manager to have in that scenario, because he's going to get more out of the young players. He's going to get more out of the players that are there at the club. And I would expect Stoke to be relatively active. They do have Sam Gallagher, who I keep forgetting that he signed for the club in the summer. So there are options. They just need them available. Well, it's easy as you got to say for Stoke. But I think Nathan Lowe coming in, exciting talent. He could drop in and be a success. We don't know. He needs that opportunity. I think Mark Robbins, as I say, he's the perfect man to give him that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing unbelievably well at Walsall this season, and for a 19-year-old, he's clearly too good for League Two. So it's going to be really exciting to see him stepping up to the Championship. But the risk is that Stoke have been definitely struggling for goals this season, struggling to create chances, and they're also sleepwalking a bit into a relegation battle, aren't they? So it's a lot of pressure to put on a 19-year-old. But we'll see how he gets on if he does start playing regularly for the Potters. Enzo Lefebvre, his move to Sunderland has been confirmed since we last spoke, Justin. It's a loan with an obligation to buy for around £20 million if Sunderland get promoted, as I was alluding to just a second ago. It was being coined the most high-profile move in Championship history by the BBC, which I'm not sure I necessarily agree with, but it is very exciting. We spoke about that move in last Thursday's episode, so you can hear more about him there. Will he make his first appearance at Burnley tomorrow? We'll talk more about that in the preview show brought to you by SBK. Let's round off the transfer news, Justin, with Hull City, who have signed Leeds forward Joe Gelhardt on loan. The 22-year-old joins, having only made 3 appearances this season. I quite like Joe Gelhardt, Justin. Annoying that he's now 22 and is still not been playing regular football anywhere. So I think he really needs a move like this, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And again, Ruben Sellers. Ruben Sellers is the sell here, so to speak. He's a manager who, he's a manager who can. I don't want to make that pun because I think it's so lowbrow for me. I'll let you do that.
Lowbrow from you.
I think Gelhardt is a player that it promised so much earlier on in his career. I think him and Ruben Sellers is a match made in heaven. He's a player who needs to recover a little bit from not quite hitting his development stride that he needed to hit. And in addition to that, Ruben Sellers has got a history of getting a lot more out of younger players than perhaps we know is there. I think this is a really good signing. He's a flexible forward as well, which is probably what Hull need right now. It's a good signing, a really good signing. I think one that will go under the radar. I think in terms of impact they'll have on the team. Yeah,
well, I really like Joe Gelhardt. It's a shame, as I say, that he's not had regular football in a long time, really, because he's always been not even second or third fiddle at Leeds. He's always been well down the pecking order, so it's a mystery to me why he hasn't been able to get a loan move sooner. But, I mean, we saw when he was at Sunderland, he didn't pull up a huge amount of trees by any means, but he did really well still. Great link-up play, he works hard. He's certainly a lot better than what Hull have currently got, because João Pedro and Bedia have not been looking convincing at all. And look, this could be a view to him moving there permanently, because it doesn't look like he's got a future at Leeds United at this stage, and he needs a change of scenery and, most importantly, some game time, because, as I say, not played much at all in the past 2 years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on. And you're absolutely right, Ruben Sellers has got a great record of developing young players, so hopefully this will be a great move for Gelhardt himself. Hull have also signed former Middlesbrough midfielder Matt Crooks, Justin. He joins on a permanent deal from Real Salt Lake in the US, and you're a big Matt Crooks fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I think you can play him anywhere on the pitch and he will get into the box at some point. I think he's a very underrated player, because his graft is so important to a team, and he can find himself in really good positions. So if Hull are putting in, getting good chances created, I think he could be a really useful asset. And he's a low-key a bit of a shithouse as well, which you gotta love.
Yeah, he's a big bully, isn't he? He's a big boy. And I think I was always a bit surprised that he went to the US at this stage in his career, because I think he still had quite a lot to offer at Championship level.
That's disrespectful.
Well, when he was playing for Middlesbrough, he was, a top-end Championship midfielder, really, wasn't he? So
yeah, he was. But the MLS presents a chance for a lot of footballers to go abroad that they might not get. So I think it's good.
But just
and he's in his late 20s.
Yeah, but my point is that he still has a lot to offer in England, whereas, there's the MLS. I won't be as disrespectful as some people are towards the MLS, but when you're a player with ambitions, you want to be playing in the Premier League, you want to be playing at the highest level, and the Championship gives you a pretty good chance to do that, obviously. So that's why I think it was a bit of a surprise that he went to the US at that stage in his career. But look, he's back in the Championship now. And I think he's going to be a really useful midfielder for Hull City going forwards. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been a news roundup of everything cracking off across the Championship for the past week, really, because we had our team of the season, halfway team of the season on Sunday, so we didn't have any chance to talk about news there. If you haven't heard that episode, by the way, make sure you go back and listen to that to find out who we think has been the cream of the crop across the Champo this season so far. But we'll, of course, be back again tomorrow with the preview show brought to you by SBK as we look ahead to the weekend's action. I'll tell you what, it's a bloody big weekend as well. Loads of big games cracking off. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.